Hey everybody, thank you for joining us in the second video of Higher Power Faith. So we're going to start with the joke, all right? What kind of mass do Cheech and Chong love to attend? A high mass. Drop me a comment and let me know if you even know who Cheech and Chong are. If if you're under 50, I realize maybe you've never heard of them before. I could be wrong. But anyways, thank you for joining us. And I love being Catholic. And I hope that if you have trouble saying that boldly to anybody other than your mirror at home, I'm hoping you will continue to tune in where your faith can be enhanced to the level where you can proudly and boldly proclaim that same sentence. I love being Catholic. Is everything absolutely perfect about the Catholic faith and the Catholic Church? I'm talking about whenever you have some elements of humanness, man, woman, whatever, then of course it's not going to be so perfect. So I'm not counting those aspects, but just like there's no perfect family, right? But for the most part, people will love their families, right? There might be one or two people that they wish they could get along with better, perhaps, as an example. But in the same way, I love my Catholic faith. I love my Catholic church, Catholic family, my Catholic friends. And I hope at some point, if you have trouble saying that now, that you can get to that point where you can proclaim that without any hesitation as well. And so one of the things that I wanted to discuss in the second video is that this spiritual conversion I had. I was brought up Catholic, kind of fallen away from the church in my college years, like so many do. And I ended up in this place called Medjugorje, which was then a communist country in Yugoslavia. And I had this mountaintop experience, and I wrote this autobiography in 2013 about my life up to that point and this spiritual conversion that took place. And it's this book I wrote called Mother Mary Comes to Me, Words of Wisdom from Medjugorje. And yes, that's me back in 1989. And it's on Amazon. I would encourage you to order it. It's a great value. And it has definitely inspired a lot of people. I get, still to this day, emails letting me know how it has touched people's lives. So I encourage you to read it. Part of that spiritual conversion came about in part because of the Beatles. I am a huge Beatles fan, and I love the Beatles as much as I love the Catholic Church. To give you some indication, this is the table of contents. So you'll notice that every single chapter title is the title of a Beatles song. Just somehow, some way, it all tied in just so beautifully to be able to do that. But I will tell you that there was a lot of spiritual fruits from this visit to Medjugorje in 1989. And many miraculous things occurred to me, around me after that. But I will tell you, the one thing that was the biggest miracle of all was this grace that I received then to read. Now, up until that point, again, I was 24 years old before the internet. I was not a big reader. I didn't read much of anything, much less scripture. This spiritual conversion led me back to the Catholic Church in a very strong way. And it was in big part because of the reading that I had done after that experience. Because how can somebody go from having no interest in reading, period, much less reading anything of a religious context, how could that happen, right? It could only be from God. So I was going to these religious bookstores, the Daughters of St. Paul. This was in Los Angeles at the time. And I was just hoarding up on books, many of which I still have, many of which I've shared over the years. But all of these books had a profound impact on my learning and studying about this newly discovered faith of Catholicism. And not just Catholicism, but it also led me to want to learn and study more about other religions. So I read bits on Hinduism and Judaism and did I say Buddhism? Hinduism, Buddhism, Judaism, and Mormonism, and Seventh Day Adventist, and all different sects of Protestantism that came about in the 1500s, and Islam, all these different churches, right, that exist around the world. I wanted to learn more about them, so I wasn't so ignorant about these other faith beliefs. And yes, there's some similarities for sure with Christianity. Others, there are some pretty stark differences as well. And we're going to get into some of that much later in other videos. But I learned so much about these other faiths. But I was reading scripture for the first time, and I was also reading about the lives of the saints. And you want to be inspired. There is no shortage of saints that you can read about that are just incredible stories. I mean, some of these people were about as bad as you can get. They were so far from God, about as far away as you can get. And somehow, some way, God touched them and they reached out. That's the key, is they reached out to God. God's always has his hands out for us, waiting, right? We have to reach out and grab God's hands. And just the miracles that took place with some of the lives of these saints. Wow. Learning about the history of the Catholic Church, folks, I can tell you after studying some of this stuff, there are many, many times throughout history that the Catholic Church should have just dissipated, vanished, and gone away for good. And it's only by the grace of God and that promise of God that it's still with us here today. Because really, you look at how has the Catholic Church survived these moments in history when the persecutions and whatnot. So again, all of that for a later video. But I found all of this stuff exciting. Learning about this was exciting. And so the lives of the saints, the history of the church, learning about other faith, it was all exciting to me for the very first time. And so it was all of that formed me, who I am to this day, and still learning, still on this journey, but it formed this level of confidence that was never there before. And a lot of it has to do because I just did my part and picked up some books. This was in 1989. It's so much easier now with the internet, right? There's so much stuff that's out there that's easily accessible. So even more so, you really don't have any excuse. But I would just encourage you at this point to read as much as you can. Yes, read scripture. You should read scripture all the time. But in addition, pick up some of the lives of the saints. And I'm going to get into some of my favorites in other videos. But learn about the history of the church. Again, some of these things I'm going to be talking about in some general fashion, some detailed fashions in the future. But try to force yourself. If you're not a big reader, and maybe you're not going to have any major conversion experience to hit you over the head that gives you that energy to read the book, but just try to pick up some books, starting with scripture. Pick up some books on the lives of the saints, and some of these great minds from our past, whether it's C.S. Lewis, Thomas Merton, Aquinas. There's just so many, and the early church writers are very fascinating to me also. So anyways, that's really what prompted me to really get back into the Catholic faith, is to learn about it, study about it. And kind of like the Beatles, the more I got into the Beatles, this was in my early 20s also, the more it got me, the more not only did I learn, but it got me to realize and appreciate how incredible these four guys from Liverpool were in what they did, what they created. So to me, it's kind of like these two parallels, my journey of understanding and learning about the Beatles and the Catholic Church. And the more I dug in deeper with these topics, the more my mind was just expanded and blown, like, wow. And that continues to this day. So I hope with these series of videos that I'm going to be putting out, you can have a little bit of shared experience in appreciating our love of the church and the faith and the love of God that we have in our hearts. And so with that, I appreciate you subscribing to this channel, Higher Power of Faith, so we can continue to get this message out there to people that God knows who needs to hear it. And share this video with others yourself. And thank you for doing your part with that. And of course, liking. So thanks again for watching, and we'll see you again soon.